Welcome, everyone, to episode 3 of Emotionships, the podcast, New Year's Eve edition.
Woo!
I'm your host, Charlie Carroll, with my lovely co-host, Mallory Redmond. Mal,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Did we talk about in episode 1 Frank Sinatra's son being captured for ransom?
No.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah.
On his birthday. That
He was captured on his birthday?
He was given back.
He was
on
returned.
His birthday. Yes. True story.
What a birthday gift.
You gotta wonder what was going on out there in Las Vegas that they felt it necessary to take Frank Sinatra's child from
And
him.
also, why did we not? I didn't know that. That feels like a significant story.
Yeah, I don't think mass media was around when it happened.
Oh.
I know it was a story though.
Well, we're spreading it now.
We are fresh back from the big city ourselves.
Hence the song.
Yes. And right here on the eve of a brand new year, 2020, it feels like such a big year.
Yeah, new decade.
Yes. What did you think of our trip to New York? For those, let me fill all of those in that are joining us on our YouTube channel. Hello, everyone. We just went to New York City with a group of our hospitality leaders. So about 15 of us went to New York here right before Christmas just to test the hospitality waters.
And what wild waters those are.
What waters we tested.
Oh, my goodness.
What did you think? What was your highlight? What stood out to you?
I love New York so much. Growing up, I wanted to live there.
Yes.
I had on my bedroom wall a big poster of New York City with a sign over it that said "Dream."
So inspirational.
I know.
It is. I mean, it is a magical city. I know it's not that way to everyone, but
it's yes. And I don't know. I think I could still live there even now. I've wondered just with like the hustle and bustle of the city, but
right.
The energy is. To me, it's like Washington D.C. A little bit of a different kind of energy, but just so much energy.
Yeah.
Where you're just keenly aware, like. Lots of stuff happens here.
Oh, yeah. So many people.
Oh, my goodness. It's awesome.
8.3 million people in the city?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the number. I recently looked it up just to see how many people they had visit every day. And I think I'll get that part wrong, but it's a huge, huge number.
Well, people can Google it. But then what's wild is you go to Central Park and it's like you're in a completely different world.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people, but it's a different feel.
Yeah.
And then you walk a few blocks and you're back in like Times Square.
Yeah.
It's insane.
What was the highlight for you?
That's a good question.
You know, the last place we ate lunch at the Lambs Club is there in Times Square right underneath the ball where the ball will be dropping this evening.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
It was right above us. So the Lambs Club is located inside a boutique hotel called the Chat Wall. And if you stay in their upper floors, you can go out onto the roof and literally you are right under the ball.
No way.
Yeah. What was your highlight?
Okay. Ooh, I mean, that burger.
Oh, DB Modern.
DB Modern. That's where the gourmet burger craze started.
Yes.
So I read on
Back
their
in
website.
the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. And I think everybody but one person in our party ordered the burger.
Yeah.
And it did not disappoint.
No.
It was amazing. And even just hospitality-wise, I mean, I don't know that you made the reservations in advance there, maybe a couple hours.
Yeah.
And so we were in 3 different tables because we had a massive party. And then a big table opened up that they could fit us all around. And so someone came and tapped us on the shoulder before we had I think we had an appetizer.
Yeah.
And they sat us all together, which was amazing.
Shout out to Allison Redmond.
Allison Redmond.
The GM there at DB Modern.
She's great.
Yeah.
They took good
really
care
took
of
care
us.
of us.
Yeah. And same with Gramercy. I think that was the first night we did.
Yeah, Gramercy Tavern.
They took amazing care of us as well.
So good to get out into the big city, feel the energy.
What was your highlight? I mean, you had eaten at all of these places.
Yeah. I think being around Rockefeller Center with across from Saks Fifth Avenue and seeing all of the lights and all of the people, tens of thousands of people going through FAO Schwartz with the kids.
Yeah.
We took our kids, for those of you that are watching. We thought it was an experience they needed to enjoy right here before Christmas.
And what was, magical, we're in Rockefeller Center, we're in the area of Rockefeller Center a week or two before Christmas, I guess, and all of a sudden it starts snowing.
Yeah.
Like out of a movie.
Yeah. So good.
It's so good. And there's so many people there, and we were walking, you're just like shoulder to shoulder in the crowds. And as it started snowing, somebody walked past my husband and I, and they said, "What is that? Is that snow?" Yeah. Which for us, it's like, I grew up with snow every winter, but who knows where they were from.
Sure.
And that was like their first time experiencing snow.
Sure.
It's just a huge conglomeration of a ton of different people from all over the world.
Probably not from Southern California. Did you hear they had snow in Southern California last week?
I did not.
Yeah. We had 60-degree weather here in Ohio, so nice. and snow in Southern California. What's going on?
Backwards. Well, that there is actually probably something going on, but that's a different episode.
Yeah.
We don't need to talk about that.
Yeah, the energy. What was my favorite part? I don't know, seeing our team get to experience all of the energy and feel it and be in an environment where those who have a reputation for being the best, putting our team and being able to take our team to see and experience that was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Hopping from Uber to Uber with a big group like that was big. I enjoyed running into Rich Fresh.
Shout out to Rich Fresh.
Hey, Rich. My wife, for the last couple of years, has told me she has followed Rich Fresh on Instagram.
Yeah.
And for those of you who do not know Rich Fresh, you can search and find him on Instagram. But he is a fashion designer and deals with suits and bags and joggers and very fashionable.
Yeah. Cutting edge.
And so my wife for a number of years has said, hey, you need to, when you're out there in Los Angeles, hook up with this guy and have him make you some clothes. So we're getting out of, on Monday, we're getting out of an Uber at our hotel. We stayed at the Roosevelt, kind of classic New York, right in the middle of everything. And there in front of us getting out of his Uber was Rich Fresh.
And she recognized him right away.
She did.
Yep.
She said, hey, there's Rich. So
which is something, side note, I am not able to do. Can you do that? Like, do you recognize celebrities in like their natural state?
Here and there.
I can't do it. We saw Paul Reiser in New York, and I would have walked right past him.
Yeah.
But people started yelling his name.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I was in Florida in a little juice bar, and Dr. Perlmutter actually was in the juice bar, and I don't know if he wrote Grain Brain.
Okay.
And
I would have authors are, that's a whole different.
Well, the only reason I recognized him was because I know his voice. I've listened to his podcast a couple of times.
Okay.
And so I was standing in line and I heard this voice and I thought to myself, who is that? Because I know their voice. But I looked over and then it was him. Good book.
Wow.
Knows what he's talking about.
Did you talk to him?
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
Talked to him for a few. But going back to Rich,
Fresh, yes.
We were getting on the elevator and then I had this energetic impulse, this leading, as I will describe it, talking about Emotionships, just go say, hey, right? I don't know him.
Yeah.
But I appreciate what he does. And so he was at the front desk and I walked over and he was having an issue with something going on at the front desk. And we were able to connect and talk about a few things. And I'm looking forward to getting out to LA to get fitted by him and to buy some clothes.
Some suits, yeah.
Yeah. Cool guy.
Nice. That's awesome.
But yeah, I just enjoyed having our team in that environment. And, you know, going into Italy, for those of you who have not been to New York, it's definitely something that you need to do is get to Italy, open Italian market, and we appreciate all things Italian. I just love the hustle and bustle.
Oh my gosh!
It's
sensory overload, and it can be. I mean, it can be overwhelming, but it's in a dose like we had, that was a pretty whirlwind trip.
2 days.
So it's exciting.
Yeah. And so for me, it's fun to watch. We went into several of the big brand stores like Nike. My boys wanted to look at shoes. And just to see the different messages that are in those environments that are designed, right, with a best guess in mind as to how do you take someone and tell them that they need something without telling them that they need something, right? Like how do you appeal energetically to someone's interests and then have it end in a transaction? And that's what I think is so fascinating about energy in big places like New York, where a lot of messages and information and energy is swelling and moving at a very, very fast pace.
You're not even aware of it all.
Yeah. It's in the song we opened up with Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
There's a line in there that he says something about his little city problems or blues going away. And there's a lot of truth to that. You get in that environment that is so much larger than you are, and things seem to, some of your short-term or smaller problems tend to get eaten up by the environment.
Right. I wonder then what it's like if that is your environment.
Yeah, for sure.
That's where you live.
Yeah. Well, I think it would require that you really get good at tending to the small details in life. And that's what I've found, right? That in business, you'll start handling business size checks and checking accounts. And if you're not careful, because you're writing checks for $20 and $30 and $50 and $100,000 at a time, if you're not careful, that will lead you to a place where you don't care about dollars as much.
Yeah.
And that'll get you into trouble.
Right.
And so I think it's relevant here on the cusp of a new year. You know, in episode 2, we finished our time talking about practical suggestions for how do you recognize the energy that is all around you on a regular basis and really get to that so you can grab a hold of it and steer it to serve you.
Right.
Right. To invite more of the stuff that's good that you want in your life, and to repel and resist, recognize, repel, and resist some of the things that are not serving you.
Wow.
I can't help the alliteration.
How about that alliteration?
Can't help it. I've been talking too long.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I think there's something to be said as we head into the new year about, no, this is not alliteration, so please forgive me.
Yeah.
But awareness and creation, like that's the two words that I would use, is being aware of the energy and then doing what you can to create. Yeah. You know, you can't always be in positive energy, but you can do what you can to create an environment that is healthy and positive. Sure. And then be aware when, you know, I think I was telling you or someone the other day, my husband's a big Seahawks fan.
Yeah. Big game the other night.
Big game the other
night.
Came
down to the last play.
Literally came down to the last, a game of inches.
Yeah.
But he can really get going, you know, because he's invested. And so it was a couple of games ago, they lost to a team that they should not have lost to. And his energy, like he was anxious, he was angry, he was feeling all of these feelings. And so I started feeling them as well. But I was aware of it. And so I could say, like, they're not going to win this game. Let's shut it off. Like, we don't need to watch it anymore. Yeah. Whereas growing up, like I now as an adult can look back at my childhood and remember times where I felt anxious, but I didn't know what I was feeling. Yeah. I just felt like my heart was beating and I felt kind of sick to my stomach, but I didn't have language for it. Yeah. And who knows what waters I was swimming in or what I was kind of taking on, but I couldn't do anything about it because I didn't understand what was going on. And so now at least I can take a little bit more control and say, like, either I'm going to leave this room or we're going to turn this game off because I'm feeling anxiety I don't need to be feeling right now.
And that's, you can't help but be sucked into the things that you care about. And that's what we were talking about in the last episode, that whatever you give your attention to, you give life to.
Yep. And
so when something is negative or difficult, you've got to be careful. You know, I say to people that they don't care about the dents in my car, right? Because they don't own my car.
Right.
And so you won't be depressed or upset and have a bad Sunday afternoon when your NFL team loses, if you can understand that a lot of professional sports are oriented toward building and growing their fan base.
Sure.
And what really makes you a fan above all other things is that you care.
Yeah.
So when they're losing, they've got you. You realize they've got you.
Mm-hmm.
When now all of a sudden, because your team of 11 people that are throwing and catching and running an animal skin across painted lines, when they don't do it as well as the other team does it, and now all of a sudden the rest of your Sunday or the rest of your week is ruined,
yeah,
you basically know that you have given them enough of your energy that based on how they do, your life and energy goes up or down.
Yes, right.
And so...
Luckily, it's not that severe for my husband. But yes.
But it is for a lot of people.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, it really is.
For years, I was that way with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Well, good thing you gave that up because this would have been a very rough year for you.
For sure. I was forced to. Yeah. Enough losing seasons.
Yeah, it's not very fun anymore.
You're forced to.
Yeah.
So when let's talk practically speaking about these emotionships, energy moving all around us all the time.
Mm-hmm.
How do you identify them and how do you benefit from them? How do you learn to find the steering wheel of your life,
mm-hmm.
which is really unseen and often unprocessed energy and motion, and grab a hold of it and get it to serve you versus serving it?
Right.
We are now at the beginning of a year, and most people see, they recognize their need for change, and they'll be able to put a certain amount of energy behind it for a certain period of time. But statistically, 75% of people that make a New Year's resolution run out of gas within the first 10 days.
Yes, that's why I don't make them.
Yeah. And so why is that? What can we do about it? And as you know, over the last 10 years, 12 years, I have been working on how do you do this? How do you identify your interaction with the energy that's all around you all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Because like we said, in American culture, we can get lured into believing that if we can't perceive it or describe it, then it doesn't exist and I'm not being affected by it. But the truth of the matter is your second brain, which is in the top of your gut, interacts with energy and then your brain processes it. Well, if we never create a level of awareness to where our brain processes what's going on, then we'll constantly live in a reactionary mode, which will inspire the body being in fight or flight, which sets off a whole
domino effect of
problems in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've realized, a couple of things is, number one, your no and what you say no to is super important. That your no actually sets up your yes. It is true that you can only say yes to so many things.
Yeah.
But your yes and the space for your yes, like working out and eating right, is governed by your endocrine system, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands, and thyroid and fat, those 5 things.
Okay.
They have a battery. They have a lifespan. And if you're not investing in those things, in your endocrine system, your emotional energy, you're not going to have the willpower to become the person that you want to be by sticking to your goals and beliefs for the year.
Okay.
And so your willpower is a muscle that's affected by the energy that's all around you and how you're responding to it, perceiving it, and responding to it. And that comes back to your ability to recognize that there is energy that you're around on a regular basis through people, environments, food, and thoughts that pumps you up or builds you up or tears you down on a regular basis.
Growing up in our kitchen, there was a wooden pig on the wall that said, "I just ate my willpower." And when you just said that, it reminded me of it. But a lot of times when we're in space of energy where we feel overwhelmed or like we kind of are grasping at straws, we're not at the steering wheel, we'll go to things like that, like overeating or something where we feel like we do have control of something, but it's not the right kind of control.
Well, and that's it with eating, good example of another emotionship there. I had a hard week. Things happened to me that were out of my control or that I could not get the outcome that I wanted. Therefore, I'm going to demonstrate and exercise control, even if that's overeating or doing what I want when it comes to putting something in my mouth and how much of it I put in my mouth.
Right.
People don't realize that that's an emotionship that they're responding to, and they just can't figure out why they can't lose weight or why, finish the sentence X, Y, Z.
Right.
Speaking of quick programming time out.
Oh, okay. I love this.
This was not planned. For those of you that are tuning in via YouTube, I had a friend tell me about a collaboration, the first of its kind, between Adidas and Reebok.
Okay.
A Reebok shoe with an Adidas sole.
Interesting.
The Ultra Boost, which was a Kanye thing back in the day, very comfortable shoe.
Okay.
That came out several years ago. Adidas came up with this Ultra Boost, which is like walking on clouds sole. And Reebok, which Adidas purchased a number of years ago, just did a collaboration where they brought back the pump, Reebok pumps. Do you remember that from when you were a kid?
Yes, I do.
Such a big deal. I can remember watching D. Brown, who was an NBA basketball player that played for the Celtics, had a pair of pumps. And you remember the drama that right when they were stepping out onto the court, they would pump up their shoes.
Yeah, right.
This is with that collaboration that a friend of mine made me aware of. He brought me this CO2 inflator.
No way.
Yeah, for those of you that are watching, you can see this, where now with this pair of shoes that I have, you can use this CO2 inflator to pump up your Reeboks, or you can just manually pump them.
Does it actually pump?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I never had a pair. I just remember them.
Oh, yeah. You can find them on like Stadium Goods and different shoe apps.
So have you used original pumps? I mean, that's still in its packaging. So.
I have not yet.
Okay.
I'm going to.
I'm very curious. I mean, CO2, that's like a new level of...
It's a big deal.
Shoe.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I hope...
I will wear them for an episode.
I really hope...
To show you what they look like.
I hope a big old story comes out of this.
Yes.
Like you fly through the clouds or something.
Yeah. So getting back to your no.
Yes.
Right? Your no determines your yes, and you've got to realize that your no is a muscle driven by your endocrine system. And if you're not investing in yourself, you will not have the emotional willpower to live, let alone pioneer the new frontier.
Right. Especially because most of us are
offline.
Probably, well, yes. What I was going to say is people pleasers.
Yeah.
And so the first no we say is to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're so busy saying yes to everybody else.
Yeah. And you're just, you can do that, right? And say yes to everything, but your no will be very small, which means your opportunities will be small.
Right.
And so it's learning, when it comes to CEOs and entrepreneurs that I'll consult for a business or try to coach young entrepreneurs, one of the things that I try to help them understand is they just have a limited amount of emotional willpower every day.
Yeah.
And so if you're saying yes to a lot of things at business and yes to a lot of meetings, there is no way that you will have room for yes to work out.
Right.
You'll be spent.
Yeah.
And so it's how do you prioritize yourself and putting your own mask on first, right? It's the airplane rule that you got to put your mask on, self-care, take care of yourself first. How do you do that in a way that grows your strength and your stamina to be able to do things and keep that at the forefront so that the things that come around that are always asking for a yes don't grow so much that you stop taking care of the only vehicle that can execute those yeses.
Right.
And so I have learned that it's really important to grow your no and your willpower to say no so you can say yes to the right things.
Right. And you need to know what you have to say yes to.
Sure.
Right? I mean, that is part of it is, and I know we're going to talk about that, but just being aware of what you do need to be saying yes to, like your exclusive yeses that like you need to get in throughout the week in order to maintain a level of health and other yeses can come after that. But
well, and the trick when you find your passion and what you're supposed to be pursuing, the closer you get to it, the brighter the light is. And the challenge is to not take unnecessary detours and get enamored by the things that are coming to life in order to see the big thing or that thing you've been pursuing or that project that you've created, in order to give it enough power to come to life and to be birthed. Mm-hmm. And so for the last 10 years, I have been working on how do you articulate, and we almost have an ebook ready for this that we will release here at some point, but how do you, what do you do to position yourself to be more aware of all of the energy, the current that is around you all of the time, taking you in a specific direction and ready to be utilized or harvested for something good, but not let it have its way with you.
Yeah.
So rivers back in the day, and still today, are absolutely necessary for travel. But just because you get in the river in this current that's going in a certain direction doesn't mean that you're going to end up where you want to go.
Sure.
The goal is get in the current and let it, something that's very powerful, take you in the right direction, but develop some tools so that you can steer yourself and navigate that stream or river
mm-hmm.
to get to the ocean or the place that you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when we talk about Emotionships and recognizing all of this energy that is around us on a regular basis, that if we're not careful will produce an outcome in our life because it was designed to, right? Every bit of energy has a starting point, and though it might change as it progresses, most energy was designed or initially released to get a result. So when you look at your child and you just give them, you kind of tilt your chin down and raise your eyebrows like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
That is energy in motion that, though you don't use words, it hits them. And the purpose of it is a desired reaction.
Right.
It's to modify behavior. Well, being back there in New York, you know as well as I do that all of the signage,
mm-hmm.
right, all of the stores, the restaurants, everything is designed to produce a reaction.
Yeah.
And in a commercial sense, it's a transaction
mm-hmm.
where you're buying something in order to keep that business in business and to pay the people that are coming up with the new ideas, which also is energy in motion that has the intention to get you to pull out your wallet and to pay and to purchase something, which just keeps that cycle going. And so when we talk about what is it that we need to do to become more familiar with the source of all of this energy and what's driving our life, what I have found is that you need to practice prioritizing your beliefs over your feelings.
Good.
I several years ago, more than a decade ago, Jim Collins wrote the book Good to Great.
Yeah.
And very popular business book. It was being read in a lot of different environments. And then a few years later, he came out with Great by Choice. And if you haven't read it, you need to read Great by Choice with Jim Collins.
Yep.
Maybe we can try to have him on the podcast.
Love it, Jim.
What a guru when it comes to designing a life that is going to produce results. And that was the point of the book.
Yeah.
He did it for businesses, and he looked at businesses that not only survived the crash of 2009, but thrived during the downturn. And he said, here are the behaviors that were present in all of these companies. And I think he analyzed 1,000 businesses, maybe more than that, and then brought it down to 10 businesses that practiced the same disciplines through the downturn. And those practices or disciplines not only had them survive the downturn and the crash of 2008, but thrive during that financial crisis.
Yeah.
And so he opens the book and uses a story to make a point, and it's a story of two explorers racing to, I believe it's the North Pole or another famous landmark.
Mm-hmm.
And he shows how the two of them prepared, and he looks at their mindset. This is a well-documented story because one of them makes it and one of them never returns.
Oh, never returns?
No.
Oh,
One of them never returns.
Okay.
And so he looks at their behavior and the mentality and says, okay, here's how you get to where you want to be, and here's how you take on the impossible and survive and even thrive in downturns or in rough seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so the winner of the two explorers decided that no matter what was going on and how he felt for the day, he was going to march 20 miles.
Okay.
No more, no less. When it was sunny and the weather was perfect, he would march 20 miles, and if he still had energy, he would sit down and enjoy the environment and rest. The days that he woke up and it was cold and windy and he didn't feel good, he would still march 20 miles.
Yep.
The other explorer was driven more by his feelings, and if he felt like it was a good day, would do 40 miles.
Right.
But if he felt like it was a bad day, might stay in his tent.
Okay.
And Jim Collins goes on just to illustrate the power of 20-mile marching.
Yeah.
And
the
so
consistency.
Yeah. And so after a few years of teaching the general concept, for my own sake, because of the number of businesses that I'm involved with and run and the number of employees that are involved in our overall hospitality group, I realized that I was going to have to make me a priority, and then wanted to figure out a way to articulate that to people as they ask me how I do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so what I found was that when I can take 4 major priorities and do them 5 days a week, hence the 20 number.
Mm-hmm.
When I can take 4 huge priorities and do them 5 days a week, that in itself is the best way to determine what 20 years from now is going to look like. And so I kind of made this 20-mile march my own thing, and took it a little further that said, how do I live today in a way that produces the results I'm going to want to have 20 years from now?
Yeah. Right.
And what I came up with is 4 priorities that if you do 5 days a week, you will be able to consistently recognize the energy that's around you that will distract you and therefore keep you from becoming who you want to become. So then you could reverse engineer that idea and say, if I woke up and it was 20 years from now, 2040, how could I look back and be happy and know that I would be happy with the way I just lived my last 20 years?
Right.
And so one of the things about Emotionships is they're a little sneaky because we tend to look at the manifestation of energy and motion and what it's producing versus getting down to the roots and grabbing the roots and steering them to produce the desired outcomes.
Yep.
And so that's every day of our life. It's very easy to get thrown off course and to be led down a path because of how loud some sort of energy is. And that's fine. And it's not necessarily completely preventable.
Sure.
But what you can do is you can take 4 disciplines and pin them to the top of your thought process, right? Just like a Facebook post. Pin them to the top of your thought process. And if you keep them there 5 days a week, you are going to get where you want to go. And what I have found about it is it's the backdrop of these 4 disciplines and priorities that show me how much energy is around me on a regular basis, screaming for me not to abide by and stick to the plan, not to abide by my beliefs and stick to the plan. And so people say to me all the time, how do you recognize these emotionships, this invisible energy that's always trying to steer me in a desired direction?
Yeah.
Even if it's 2 or 3 generations old and it's your grandmother's insecurities. How do we identify those energies and make sure that we're protecting ourselves from them or getting the most out of them, depending upon whether it's positive or negative. Mm-hmm. And the answer for that is you've got to establish some guidelines. You've got to establish some priorities that help orient where you are and whether you are on track or off track.
Yeah. What I love so much about it is that it serves the present and the future all at the same time. Like it's creating the day, like the present moment that you need to have and want to have, and it's going to serve 20 years from now, give you the life that you would like to have.
And that's the thing, right? That you're building your tomorrow today. Mm-hmm. And you only have so many things you can say yes to. And that's driven by what you can say no to. And what you can say no to is driven by the health of your willpower, which is your endocrine system. And if that is healthy, then you're going to be able to do things that keeps your endocrine system, right, your emotional willpower, online and thriving. But the moment you start producing and seeing life with it, when it comes to your passion and your dream, the biggest temptation is going to be to take your hands off of the controls where you're driving and go up and entertain the manifestations or the results you're starting to get.
Right.
And that's fine. You can enjoy your dream and your passion, but what you can't do is take your hands off of a few things that you can drive that are going to produce great outcomes, because primarily it's making you aware of all of the energy that's around you on a constant basis that is screaming for you to be a reactionary person mm-hmm. versus an intentional person.
Right.
Right? I'm being intentional and I'm creating versus reacting.
Yeah.
And you can react to some things and it's fine, but you still got to keep your hands on the wheel.
And 4 things, and I know we'll get into those, but I mean, that feels manageable or doable, right? Yeah. Like it's not an overwhelming, because the big picture, when you start talking about, getting your life in order, so to speak, and having the life that you want and saying no to the things you need to say no. I mean, that can all get a little bit overwhelming and people aren't sure where to start. And so having 4 things that you do 5 days a week feels manageable. Those are handles for people to really grasp.
Yeah. And it's not as easy as it sounds, but I have shared these principles over the last 10 years with everybody that you can think of, from people coming through our poverty alleviation community mm-hmm. To very, very successful, wealthy individuals leading some of the biggest companies in our country. Mm. And, I had the benefit of a grandfather and a father who are entrepreneurs who built something from nothing and were very successful, which allowed me to watch their life. And then as I started to experience those pressures over 20 years ago and started leading a business with a lot of employees, I was able to glean from and have a multiplying benefit to having watched what they did for all of those years. And so I have found that if you want your life to look a certain way 20 years from now, there are 4 things that you have to do. The 4 things will help you identify all of the messages and all of the energy that's constantly calling for your attention, which what's funny or ironic about it is they are appealing to the very things that you're trying to do. They're just trying to get you to take shortcuts. Right? And so when you see these commercials from big brands making you feel like a rock star, that's where you want to go and where you can go anyways, if you stick to the regimen and say, here is the energy that I want to put my time in. Yeah. These are the 4 disciplines that I want to live into. I want to put my eyes and my heart and my attention on it 5 days a week because I want to grow these things. And if I grow them, that's going to best position me to do what I've been called to do.
Yeah.
And so these other distractions are like, you can be a rock star now. You can live like a rock star now. Give me your attention. Mm-hmm. Give me your money and I'll make you that.
Right.
And so here are the 4 things. Again, I have articulated this so many different ways in the past. I know this is the best version. Who knows if it will change as we move forward, but I've reduced it to 4 W's.
Of course you have.
Well,
Mr. Alliteration.
People need to remember it.
Yeah, that's good.
And it works.
I appreciate that about you.
Well, it works. So
do you have a drum roll?
Do I have a drum roll?
You don't know where it is.
I don't think I have a drum roll.
Okay. Everybody do a drum roll in your head.
Yes, here are the 4 priorities that you will need to live into 5 days a week if you are going to fulfill your dreams.
Okay.
Number 1, withdrawal. You have to withdraw from the noise and spend time in private. Just you, your journal, your Bible, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to collect your thoughts, see what energy has been roaming around you all night in your dreams, or what did you wake up thinking about because energy was in the room or came across the radio or whatever it is. Right. And then line that up with your priorities for the day and where you're going and what you know to be your direction.
Yeah, so important that this is like the start of your day.
It is.
Too, right? It's not something you can withdraw at 2:00 in the afternoon, but the real benefit is beginning your day.
Sure. I'm not asking, I mean, I guess some men do ask for directions 4 hours into their journey, but you would be wise to start the directions in the beginning.
Right.
And so withdrawing, people ask me all the time, can I do it at night? Well, do it at night also to kind of do a little checklist and see how you've done.
Right.
But you've got to start the day off with this time of meditation to get very clear. Because the reality of it is there's going to be energy around you when you wake up that will make you feel heavy, that will make you feel unenthused, right? All of those things, anxious. Mm-hmm. And it's just because of the energy that's around you. Maybe you inherited it and it's unresolved, which we can take care of that at Body Garage Dayton. Mm-hmm. You know, it's from grandma and it's stuck in your quad, whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you don't take time to withdraw and confront the energy that is manifesting in the form of thoughts, you're going to have a hard time living an intentional life.
Yeah. So this happens to me a lot. I have very vivid dreams, especially when I was pregnant. And so I'll wake up and like those dreams are with you.
Yeah.
Even if you don't remember them,
sure.
The energy of them is with you, right?
Yeah.
Or you wake up aware of what's on your calendar for the day, and that might cause dread or overwhelm or anxiety
100%.
Or whatever.
100%. So or you have a big bill due.
Right.
Or you have more bills than you have cash flow.
Yep.
And you've got to confront and say, okay, here's the issue. Here's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm separating the two. I am not my problems. Yeah. Here's what I'm supposed to, my best is good enough. Here's what I'm doing today. I have withdrawn to get my head on straight, and I'm going to differentiate between what I'm doing and who I am.
Yeah.
So, number 1, you've got to withdraw. You've got to get that clarity. You've got to get greater insight, wisdom, revelation, etc. Number 2, work out. Right? These we're talking about. So withdrawal is the first one. Number 2 is work out. These are things that you're going to do 5 days a week.
Yep.
4 disciplines, 5 days a week, in order to ensure that 20 years from now, you can look back on the 20 years and say, this is great.
Yeah.
This is better than I thought.
Right.
I really did position myself to receive greatness. Mm-hmm. So number 2 is work out.
Not always easy to do, especially in the morning, but wow, at least for me, completely changes my day.
Oh, for sure.
I drink more water. I eat better.
Yeah.
I am more positive. I mean, it completely changes my day.
Well, they've done a number of studies with depression meds and anxiety meds, and statistically, there is no difference. I'm sure people will want to quote me on this. There's no difference between depression meds, anxiety meds, and people that work out. Like all of the good hormones that are released when we work out. Drink your water and work out. So number 2 is work out. Yep. There is nothing that keeps the body and the brain young like working out. I suggest doing 2 workouts a day. Get a walk in initially, and then to start the day off and get your blood flowing, and then do something later in the day with weights. Don't go crazy.
Sure.
But work out, because what that does is that produces life and death in you. You experience a little bit of death, and then the body revives and resurrects. A little bit of death, a little more life. And the more you push yourself, right, the more it feels like death, reasonably speaking, the more life it produces. So a key to resurrection on a regular basis is working out.
Oh.
So number 2, workout. Number 3, yes?
And you can't cut corners and withdraw while working out.
No.
That is my, I'm like,
No.
well, how can I save some time here? I'll withdraw while working out.
No.
But that's not,
No.
that's not fair.
Well, it's just, these are 4 things that you have to make priorities.
Right.
And everything in the world, all of this, you watch and see, all of this other energy is going to call your name and ask you to step out of these 4 priorities, promising that you can get the results that these 4 priorities will produce via a shortcut. Yeah. And it's not long term. It is absolutely not true.
Right.
So number 2, workout. 1, withdrawal. Number 2, workout. Number 3, whole foods.
Okay.
Put whole foods and whole food supplements, but whole foods in your body.
Yeah.
The least amount of ingredients, the better. People do not see this, and they think that they can save money by eating food that is not as expensive. Now, you don't, just because food is expensive doesn't mean that it's healthy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to understand that time and energy is the most valuable resource that you have. And so when you put food in your body that steals your energy or does not help you when it comes to your endocrine system, you are begging to have less quality of life. And the crazy thing about Americans is that we do not put 2 and 2 together, that just because it doesn't necessarily affect us immediately does not mean that it's producing long-term results.
Sure.
And so you are the culmination of, or the summary of, the food that you put in yourself on a regular basis. And so take 2 days off and loosen up a little bit and have that dessert or whatever it is. But 5 days out of the week, eat whole foods with the least amount of ingredients in them. Food has life in it, right? It moves, it has life in it. And the more life you put in you, the more life you will have.
Yeah.
The most expensive meal in the world, and this is some of the stuff that we've learned in the poverty alleviation movement. The most expensive meal you could ever eat is the $2 meal that you get at the gas station. Funyuns, I think you mentioned that in episode 2.
I did, when you were high.
Funyuns and a Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, and this is the case in poverty, right? In the food deserts. This bag of Doritos for 99 cents on sale and a Mountain Dew, right? Code Red or whatever it is affordable. It fills me up. It gives me energy, and therefore it's good. That is the most long-term, that is the most expensive meal you could ever have.
Right. Whole Foods. The outside, the perimeter of the grocery store, not the outside, the perimeter of the grocery store. What I've always read is that's where you want to get the majority of your foods from. Yeah. Rather than the aisles. The aisles are where all the processed stuff is.
Agreed.
So and it'd be beneficial, I know, for at least for me. I mean, I have 2 small children at home, and so cooking can feel very overwhelming. Yeah. But there's something to be said for food prep, like spend a Sunday afternoon like prepping for the week. And I know people say that all the time, and even that sounds exhausting or overwhelming. But little by little, we don't have to. They didn't build Rome in a day.
No, for sure.
Start somewhere.
And it's a scale, right? Positive, negative. It doesn't always have to be absolutely the best thing.
Sure.
But be aware that all food, it falls somewhere on a scale.
Yeah.
More life, less life.
Yeah. And when you start to feel the results, like when you start to feel better, that's a little bit more motivating.
Oh, gosh.
From the starting line.
People are blown away. Body Garage Dayton is putting on a lose to win contest here in January where you can do this liver cleanse. And your liver is like your body's filtration system. So when the HVAC guy comes out, he'll look at your filters and change your filters out and say, hey, if you don't change your filters, the amount of energy that your unit burns sucking air through a dirty filter really taxes the lifespan of that unit.
Yeah.
That is the same with us.
Yeah.
When our liver does not get a chance to rest through intermittent fasting or a liver cleanse, the rest of our body suffers because of the amount of energy the liver needs to detoxify our blood and the rest of our body.
Right.
So Withdrawal, very important.
Yep.
Right? What you're saying no to, time for use them, very important. Workout, whole foods, and then last but not least, I say where. I just use the word where, and that is be where you're supposed to be. Meaning, you have to have a schedule that you abide by, honor your schedule, and be where you're supposed to be. And when you're there, be all there.
Right.
I think our lives are orchestrated to that level of detail when it comes to God, that God gets us where we need to be when we need to be there. The problem is just because you're there doesn't mean you're there.
Right.
And so the fourth W is where. Be where you said you would be and be all there.
Yeah.
Are you controlling your schedule or is your schedule controlling you? If that current of energy is controlling you, if your schedule is controlling you, you're not going to receive and get all that you need to get in order to be prepared to receive all you need to receive.
Yep.
And so being where you said you will be or where you've scheduled yourself to be is so important when it comes to identifying alternative forms of energy that's around us on a regular basis that screams for us to take our hands off of what we can control and what we do need or what we do know to be in our best interest for a 20-year window, to focus on the interim or the immediate that often is not going to serve the long term.
Yeah. Okay, funny story.
Yeah.
On Thanksgiving, my in-laws were in town, and we had just had a baby like the week before or something like that. And so we weren't cooking, they cooked for us. The turkey was in the oven and we were waiting 2 hours. 2 hours had passed. And so my mother-in-law goes into the kitchen to check on the turkey because it's supposed to be done any minute. And the oven hadn't been turned on.
Yikes.
So the turkey
and
the turkey was in the oven for hours, not cooking. And the story, I'm telling it because that so often can happen with us, right? It's like, well, I'm here with my family, but you're constantly on your phone checking your emails, and I am so guilty of this because I love working.
Yeah.
And so I'm where I should be, but I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like there's no productivity, nothing's happening. I'm just like sitting there, but nothing, there's nothing happening. I'm sitting there and I'm on my phone working or something like that. So just because you're where you should be doesn't mean that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, and you'll never learn the discipline of being where you are if where you are has not been regulated and driven by your beliefs versus your feelings.
Right.
I get 1,000 requests on a regular basis with my time.
Right.
And this is true of some of the CEOs and the businesses that we consult for. Very successful people. The more successful you are, the better you have to be with handling your time.
Yeah.
And so if you don't know how to say no, you can't say yes. And your no has a battery that gets fed by your ability to maintain your battery and say no to some things so you can say yes to the right things.
And it might not always feel like what you're saying yes to is going to produce fruit in the moment, right? But it's like, I think it was Mother Teresa who said, like, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. Like, there's something to be said about going home and having dinner at the dinner table with your family.
For sure.
And it might not feel very productive or earth-shattering, but, I mean, how many broken families are there in the lives of leaders, right? Because they have a hard time going home and having dinner with their family.
Well, and they get sucked in. Right? I know this. They get sucked in by good things.
Sure. Yeah.
In parts of the dream. But the point of great by choice is you've got to grab the lion by the tail and start dictating what happens. This is true when it comes to our life. Yeah. That there's all of this energy around us all the time. And the more successful you become and the further you go down the path, the more more narrow the path becomes and the harder it is to stay on it.
Right.
And that's why you've got to live into these 4 disciplines and let them guide you 5 days a week so that 20 years from now, you can look back and say, I lived by these 4 disciplines, which enabled me to do everything else. Yeah. All 4 of those disciplines are self-care focused. And it says, here's what it looks like to live a life by my beliefs and not be pulled away by the energy that's around me all the time.
Right.
Again, categories of energy, categories of emotionships, people, food, thoughts, and environments. Mm-hmm. anytime you interact with any one of those 4 categories, you are liable to be pulled offline if you are not marching and keeping your 20-mile march on a weekly basis.
Which you're basically always interacting with at least one of those 4 categories.
Even when you're asleep.
Yeah, right.
All energy matters because all matter is a form of energy.
Yeah. And I love that this is the episode that we're doing at the close of this year, because the years go by so fast.
It's amazing.
When you said in 20 years it's 2040, I literally had to do math. I was like, that's not right.
Right. How is that even possible?
It is seriously about to be 2020. It's wild. So it's good handles to have as we start a new year.
And it's the way to make 2020 the year that you want to have, that sets up all the other years.
Yep.
Right. Kind of ironic, 2020.
I love it.
Looking back on things.
How
do you
ahead.
get 20 years out from now and look back and say, those were the most productive 20 years of my life?
Yeah.
Special New Year's Eve giveaway. I want to give away a pair of the new AirPod Pros.
Yeah, which you don't even have.
I don't even have. Now, they're coming because somebody bought them for me on my birthday. My father did.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Nice.
They haven't come yet because they've been backed up. But we do have a pair on order for one lucky listener today.
How do they win?
How do you win? How do you get involved? 3 S's.
Okay, with the alliteration.
I put these out earlier. Yeah. Subscribe at Emotionships.com. Go to the subscribe button and put your name and email address in and subscribe to get updates from us. Number 2, say something on social media about Emotionships, the podcast. So number 2, say something and then share it. Share whatever you say on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook.
That's great.
Subscribe, say, and share. How is that?
We will remember that.
We are coming to an end of the year and an end of episode 3.
That's great.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Emotionships, the podcast where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. See you next time.